Welcome back to the second part of our Barclays Women's Championship Deep Dive podcast. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. Okay, so last week in part one, which you would not have missed, you would have been the first to listen to if you have subscribed. So do that now. If you've not already, just press that little plus button, subscribe button.
Giving you her headmistress look right there with her glasses on.
Seriously. Do subscribe. You won't miss an ep. But we did look at Birmingham, Blackburn, Bristol, Charlton, Durham and London City Lionesses. And we've had some good feedback about the format. So we're doing the same again with part two, unsurprisingly. And we're going to start with the two newbies, Newcastle and Portsmouth. That was my best Newcastle accent, but I don't know what a Portsmouth accent is, so we're just going to roll with it. Newcastle, so of course, promoted up from the FAWNL Northern Premier Division last year. Lots of talk about them, mostly positive, some negative, understandably. Thoughts?
Yes, there's a lot of positivity around, I guess, the region in the northeast, but also Newcastle, the way that they've gone up through the leagues, the kind of promotions that they've had, the success that they've had, and the money that they seem to be willing to put into the game. I guess you would, put a marker over that in terms of like the whole episode of the ownership takeover with Newcastle and the Saudi government, and whether PIF is linked to the government, and all of that conversation is a wider conversation that we'll have here. But there is that kind of shadow over Newcastle, and it's kind of this weird position we're in where we want to a team that is willingly investing in the sport, big tick, but the reasons for it, and then also the reasons for what the owners are trying to do, and kind of that kind of sports washing vibe, big no. So it's that kind of balance. But if you're just looking at the squad and the players, there's a lot of excitement around it. Becky Langley, the manager, they've got a really exciting manager coming through, and I think they've recruited pretty well over the summer.
Yeah, and one of the things we spoke to the players about at the media day was what winning was like last year, which is always the thing you want to hear about. You spoke to Amber-Keegan Stobbs about what that was like, but she also spoke about the importance of keeping their feet in the ground, very level-headed, understanding what's expected of them in this league. She spoke really well. Here's what she said herself.
When you look back to that day when you won the championship last year, the title and promotion, what do you remember from that day?
Just amazing vibes, just real dream, something that we'd worked hard towards, but I think we'd done it in the best way we can, and winning it at home in front of the home fans, and that's what we pay for, and the city, the legacy and everything like that, just doing it with them and putting a good show on, and having a good games cap of the season, and then just being with the girls and just, don't know, it just becoming real and wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, lifting the trophy with the girls, and then that day was just really good.
The club have really put down their kind of mark, I guess, when it comes to backing the women's team and what they've done over the last couple of seasons, and have lofty aims, of course, of the progress. How do you keep your feet on the ground, I guess, as a squad, in terms of, you're going to the championship now, you obviously want to do really well in that. So it's just about, I guess, going through the processes of getting to the point where you're moving up the table.
Yeah, I think that's it though. But I think our manager Becky and our club do our process, and this is our story. We'll stick to that, keep level-headed. Obviously we're always going to have talk about us because of the great stuff the club's doing in the back end, things like that. But we just have to work really hard and keep our feet on the ground. I think that's really big and natural in our environment. So it's never we get ahead of ourselves or anything like that. I think just open environment, talk about it, and just we've got to work as hard. We obviously got a new challenge, and we're fully aware of the league and how difficult it is. So it is finding our feet in that, being ready for the challenges, being up for them, so we're not shying away from anything, but again, just finding ourselves in the league and respecting everyone that's been there, and what kind of where they're at, and then placing ourselves in the best place possible to challenge and to compete.
It's always a nice thing to hear. We'll hear similar from Portsmouth. It's nice to kind of hear about their respective journeys. into promotion, and their excitement, I guess, about what to expect in the Championship. Now, you touched on it there. Obviously, there's been some notable signings. You've got your Demi Stokes, you've got Rachel Furness, Shania Hales, Claudia Moan coming from Sunderland as well.
Controversial. No, I think they've recruited pretty well, and I think they've blended like some really experienced players with, players that they've kept from coming up from the National League, and that's important because you're not going to survive in the Championship without those kind of players. And the kind of experience that Rachel Furness and Demi Stokes, just two of them, can bring into the squad, not just in terms of what they offer on a football field, but in terms of what they offer behind the scenes and helping, I guess, Becky with that kind of step up in what the squad demands are and what that looks like going into the Championship, and how you can kind of set the team up for success, I guess. So that's very exciting. They've done some other pretty good business as well on loan. I think Isabella Sibley from Crystal Palace is a really exciting one. Was injured at Crystal Palace for the last couple of seasons. I think she did her ACL, but before that was a really, really exciting prospect. So I think they've done well to get her, and it's an exciting time, I guess, for everyone in the Northeast. And
I guess, pulling in the likes of Demi Stokes and Rachel Furness shows kind of the wider project and how enticing it is for players. And you kind of see that, I guess, with London City Lionesses as well, a similar type of style, which is great because the two of them are going up against each other at the beginning of the season. But one of those new signings is Demi Stokes. And you asked her about why Newcastle, what it was about Newcastle, and also that kind of leaving Man City thing as well, which is quite, an interesting thing to discuss because I guess she'd been there for so long and such a good career. So it's really interesting to hear what she said about that.
How's life at Newcastle? Because obviously you've just signed. What was it about the club that drew you there?
When I had my meeting, I come out, I was so excited. I think obviously, how ambitious the club is. I think obviously the journey that they're going on. But as well, I said it just give that like family feel. And that's what I like. But as well, I think obviously Northerners love football. As well, the fan base that they've got is incredible as well. So I think obviously to be a part of that, I think it's exciting.
The Northeast, of course, has always been a bit of a hotbed of young talent coming through and talent coming through. You are one of them as well, who've born and bred up there. So what is it so special about, the Northeast as a whole, I guess?
I think we touch a lot on, like, if you look at like Lucy, Jordan, Lucy Staniforth, Jill, Steph, there's loads of players that have come from there, but I think as well, because it is so far, and I say like in terms of like funding and stuff, there wasn't a lot of it there. So you knew you had to work extra hard. So I think that's maybe it. Like you're a bit more grit because you know that you've got to work harder for it.
Sure. In terms of you had that career at City as well. You've been there a long time. Is it quite exciting having a bit of a change?
Yeah. I think obviously when you've been somewhere for a very long time, you can, it's when you go to a new place, it can feel a bit overwhelming. But I think actually exciting is the word to probably use. And it's something new as well, which, change can be good.
Love Demi. And there is going to be lots of rivalry in the Northeast.
It's always been a hotbed of talent. If you think about England teams of old, a lot of them have come from that region. Generally Sunderland, because that was the main producer of football. But now you look at the Championship, you've got Durham, Newcastle, and Sunderland up there. Going to be some really spicy derbies, stuff like that. But it also means less travel, I guess, for them as well. So they can
for everyone else.
There's 3 games as well, 6 games, can't add up, but how many other games of the season you have up in the Northeast where you don't have to move around so much. So I think that's positive as well. But I think it's part of the history of that area, and it's really good to see that women's football is thriving at the top level once more.
So yes, they will be playing London City Lionesses, as I said. It will be away, so it is going to be a bit of travel for them on the first day, 8th September, 2 p.m. at Hayes Lane. Looking forward to watching that one on YouTube, I think.
Yes, that one is on YouTube.
Yes, it is. All right, next newbie, Portsmouth. Of course, promoted up from FAWNL Southern Premier Division. Jay Sadler in charge, and a lot of excitement around the south of England as well, I suppose, and some more derbies to look forward to.
Yeah, I think they're the ones less talked about maybe sometimes. And it would be wrong to underestimate what they can do. I think the competitiveness of the league is going to be even more so over the coming season. They've turned pro over the summer, become a full-time outfit. That might take a bit of time, as we talked about elsewhere, and how that kind of shift can affect players and everything. But they will be pretty confident that, they've got everything in place to perform pretty well in this league, and especially with that kind of full-time model. I think they have a good squad. They've recruited also. They've taken a few championship players here and there, brought in some experience as well, which, as the same with Newcastle, that's going to help them in that move up. And they've got a really good core of players from when they were in the National League. It's nice to see teams that stick with a good, foundations that got them there. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and that was something that goalkeeper Hannah Haughton spoke about. She spoke really well about their celebrations and how they enjoy getting promoted, but also like the journey they've been on as a club and turning pro, and what it's meant to her being a part of the squad, and also what it's meant to her being captain. I think she spoke really well on it.
How is everything going at Portsmouth? Because it's a very exciting time.
No, really good, really good. It's been a crazy almost 12 months actually, because this time last year we just transitioned to semi-pro from grassroots, and we thought that was absolutely incredible. And then obviously from the investment of the owners and how much time and how much they like the women's team and want them to push forward. And then 12 months down the line, not only did we just go from semi-pro, we just got promoted, and now we're full-time professional footballers. It's been crazy. It's been a whirlwind, but it's all very exciting, very new, and a fantastic club to be a part of.
You say it very exciting. When you look back to that day where you won the title last year and you got that promotion, and I saw the celebrations afterwards as well. I think you were out in Portsmouth, having a big old party. What do you remember about that day?
Oh, it was actually really crazy because we almost had 3 promotion parties. So when we actually won the league, we didn't have a game that day. So we were all as a team. Obviously, we had training, then we came to Fratton Park together, and we were waiting on Ipswich's results, and then we won the league there. And then the following weekend we had the South Sea Parade for the men's team and the women's team, where we had like 50,000 people come down, celebrate it. And then the following weekend was when we had our last game of the season, and then obviously then we had the trophy presentation in front of all of our fans and everything. So yeah, we didn't just have one celebration, we had 3, which was amazing. But yeah, no, I look back at it now and it's an amazing achievement. I don't think it's still sunk in about what we've achieved and what we're a part of at the moment. I think that will be September when that whistle goes. But yeah, no, enjoying and loving every second. It's just a complete dream to be a part of.
For you, you've been at Portsmouth for a while now. You've got that captain's armband on your side. What does it mean to be a part of this team?
As cliche as it sounds, it means everything to me. Like, Portsmouth's not just a football team to me, it's a family and it's a home. Like, to think where I joined, this will be my 6th season coming into. When I signed at Christmas time, and we were in a relegation battle, and we've gone from being in a relegation battle of Tier 3, not having a consistent home ground, not having a consistent training venue, and we've just progressed all this way. And to see how far the club's come and it's changed is just amazing. And credit to JR, our head coach, because it's been his dream to build the team this far and how hard he's worked for that. It's just amazing for what he's done. But no, honestly, a dream come true, and I'm loving every single minute. And being captain is just, yeah, like last year was my first year being captain, and that was amazing. And to think that for our first ever year and first ever time in the Women's Championship, part of this club, that I get to captain that is just, it's an honour. And I can't put it into words.
Like Hannah's great. She's been part of this team for a long time, so she knows everything about it. She's an experienced pro, and it's very cool that she gets to be part of this next step in their journey.
Yeah,
as a football team.
Absolutely. So some of those key signings that you touched on, we've got Sophie Barker, Annie Hutchings from Man City, Erin McLaughlin from Peamount, another Irish in Portsmouth, which I'm delighted about always. So again, like that blend of talent, but also the people who've been there with Portsmouth, know the style they play, know what Jay Sadler wants out of them, and that blend is quite important.
That Sophie Barker one stands out to me because she has been a WSL player. She's been in the Championship. She has so much experience. She's been around like the leagues for a long time now. So for her to come in, she was in a coaching role as well, where she was playing captain Sheffield last year. She was coaching at the same time. So she does have that kind of all-round attributes that she can bring to build up the squad from off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And, I'm not sure she'll play every game maybe these days, but she will be a leader on the sideline and someone for the younger players especially to look up to, well, all of the players to look up to and see how she goes about things and does things and works as a professional footballer, because she's known that a lot for a long time.
Another stalwart that we spoke to was Riva Casley, and as we kind of touched on in the previous episode, the championship as a league, particularly for teams coming down or teams going up, knowing that it is going to be a difficult league, a very tight league. There's just one promotion spot. So that was something you asked Riva about, but also about the growth of football on the South Coast and more derbies. There's going to be so many derbies next season, just generally, like nearly every week you're going to have one.
Much the same as the North East. You've now got Portsmouth and Southampton on the South Coast. And we went to Moneyfields last year for the FA Cup and saw what they were doing down there. And there's a lot of, and you've seen some of the stuff that's going around, maybe Bournemouth and stuff. Yes, they're in the lower leagues, those two teams, but they are putting efforts and resources into women's football. So within the region of that South Coast area, it's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of opportunity for young girls coming through as well to play in these teams and come through the ranks, but also to have the South Coast derby, to have Portsmouth against Southampton. It's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, she spoke really well on it. Here's what she said.
The championship is a bit of a mad one.
Yeah.
It's anyone can beat anyone on any given day. So I guess that's another challenge, I guess, for you to adjust to. It's like you can never expect anything in this league.
Yeah, exactly. And we had the same last year in the WNL. It's anyone could beat anyone. It was kind of anyone's game to take. And if you turn up, you turn up. If you don't, it's about how you come back from that. So as long as we can keep focused on us and make sure we're doing the right things week in, week out, we can't really change anything else. It's a bit out of our control. So we've just got to focus on controlling the controllables and playing the football we love to play.
Football is thriving on the South Coast at the moment. You've obviously got Southampton in the same league. That's going to be a biggie.
Yeah.
When you two meet. Are you really excited for that one?
That derby day I'm really looking forward to. We played them in the Cup last year and they just beat us 2-1. So it'll be nice to get a little bit of revenge this year if we can. Do the double on them. We'll do the double on them. But that's definitely a game I'm looking forward to.
It must be really good that there are now so many options in kind of that part of England. And, I know we spoke to Moneyfields last year as well. It really is. There's a real ecosystem going on, and that's really positive, I guess, for the game, for you as a club, but for the game growing
in general. Yeah, 100%. It's if you go anywhere else in the country, I think so I'm not actually from Portsmouth, but wherever I'm from, you have to travel so far just to play at a decent standard. So for it to be getting so much bigger and there being, so many opportunities within like Southampton, Portsmouth that are so close together, you're going to have more girls joining in. You're going to have more girls making it and, actually thinking that they can be full-time professional footballers. Because it wasn't something that I thought about when I was younger. Obviously, I wanted to, but I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
And, I mean, doing it now it's everything.
The other thing you have to factor in as well is that we could have some League Cup games, get up against Brighton, add another derby into the mix, and lots of options on the South Coast, which is very, very exciting. Their first fixture is away to Charlton on the 8th of September, 2 p.m. at the Valley. So that'll be a very good clash.
Yes, against one of the favourites last season. The newbies against one of the favourites. That's going to be quite a challenge,
start. But
it's going to be fun, I'm sure.
Like Newcastle getting London City Lionesses, and I know they didn't finish, as well as I would have liked, but they're the ones everyone's talking about and everything that's going into it and the signings they've made, and now, Portsmouth having to face, second place, the almost champions.
So what you want is all of these kind of narratives, and whether it's about the newfound derby as well, the historic derbies are now newfound because they're now in the same league. Or whether it's, all of these little stories going on within the opening day of the season. It's going to be one not to take your eyes off, I think.
Yeah, as if the championship needed any more spice. Right, next we've got Sheffield. Last season finished 7th on 29 points. Ash Thompson, of course, manager there. They've had a lot of outgoings.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a topsy-turvy summer.
Yeah,
I think for them. Put them along with Blackburn as one of the two teams who've had a pretty rough summer. Yeah, maybe not as rough as Reading, but they've been pretty rough summer.
Yeah, they've had a lot of outgoings. They need to bring some more players in, and recording this a couple of days ahead of time, so maybe by the time this goes out, there'll be a flurry of action.
Yeah, and there was all of that reporting anyway around the time of the Rovers stuff. The Reading thing happened, then Rovers stuff came out, Blackburn Rovers stuff. And then kind of the Sheffield United stuff came out that, they hadn't meant to start pre-season and they still hadn't started pre-season because they weren't sure about kind of the resources being put into the team, what that looked like. And it led to sort of an outgoing flux of players. A lot of players left, the Sophie Barkers of the world. Charlton picked up a few, Jodie Haughton, Charlotte Newsham. There's been quite a lot of players either going to other championship clubs or even to the National League, which I think is really interesting because as far as I know, some clubs in the National League are paying players more than certain championship clubs. So I think that's been something to contend with as well.
Yeah. They have had some players in, Monique Robinson from Leicester, Leanne Cowan from London City Lionesses, Shan Rogers from Charlton, Satara Murray from Bristol. So a good calibre there of players coming in. And one of those players was Monique Robinson. And now we say new player coming to Sheffield, but that was where she started as a kid. Like that was where she was at youth level. So actually coming back maybe isn't as new as you might think. But here's what she said about the move.
Obviously, you're new at the club. It probably takes a bit of time to settle completely, but that whole process, I guess, having pre-season as well is really helpful in getting active on the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. And getting in at the start of pre-season as well makes it easier because I'm not coming into a team and having to pick up and catch up.
For sure. And what was kind of that decision behind moving to Sheffield? Obviously, come through the ranks at Leicester.
Yeah.
Big change, I guess.
Yeah, well, before I was at Leicester, I spent a season in the academy at Sheffield. So I was familiar with some of the coaches and stuff. And Sheffield kind of set my career up before I went to Leicester. So I just thought to go further again, it's a good decision to make.
For sure. And I guess for you as a player, having been at Sheffield before, still quite young, you're still at the very start of your career. So yeah. I guess getting back to a place that's pretty familiar for you is quite good.
Yeah, definitely. And somewhere where I hope I can play and really make my mark.
So obviously, there's no shying away from the very difficult season last year that the players had at Sheffield with the tragic passing of Maddie Cusack and the subsequent investigation and ultimate sacking of Jonathan Morgan. So the team is going through that kind of rebuild now, it feels like. So it is going to be important for them to be able to keep hold of some of the players who've been there for a while and who are Sheffield through and through, right, to help kind of galvanise the team through that.
Yeah, I guess when you look at that whole situation and everything that's around it, it probably was inevitable that a lot of players moved on. I think everything around the club was pretty tricky last season, and I guess the heartbreak and all of that stuff, it must have weighed really heavily on the players who were part of that and who were part of that squad. So I'm not entirely surprised that there's been a bit of movement around, but as you say, they have had a strong academy. They have had players coming through. They're known pretty well for developing young talent. We've seen a few move on. When you look at the likes of Mia Enderby and Lucy Watson, Enderby last season at Liverpool, Lucy Watson moved down to Chelsea, got injured, but is one of those talents that they've developed. So I do think that's where they can look to kind of bolster their squad, but also bring new players into a competitive form of football.
Yeah, and one of those players is Molly Graham, and she spoke to you about what playing at Sheffield means to her and also what it was like progressing up to the seniors and making her debut, which is pretty nice to hear. This is what she had to say.
And in terms of Sheffield, you've been there a long time. You're a true Blade. What does the club mean to you?
I joined Sheffield when I was 11, 20 now. So it's been a few years going into my 10th season there, so it's a credit to everything I've learned in football, really. So that's how I see it.
And I guess making that progress from kind of the academy up to the senior team, yeah. And what was it like making your debut?
Oh, great! Like the first time I was 20, so I don't know where my head was at the time. I was just like a deer in headlights, so ready to come on and make a difference. But to be able to move through the academy and get the opportunity to play for the team that you love and you support and you've been at for however long, and you've seen the progression from how it's changed from when I was young to now. Yeah, it's great.
So Sheffield's first fixture is against Durham. It's away on the 8th of September and it's at 12 p.m. So that one rogue timing, I think, compared to everybody else, at Maiden Castle Sports Park. So if you're a Sheffield fan, that is where you'll be going. Right, we're going all the way down now, back to the south coast to Southampton, who last season finished 4th on 39 points, and of course were part of that pack, that racing pack, racing to the end of the season. They stayed in for a while, eventually fell away a few games from the end. But they have a new manager in Remy Allen, which is very exciting. Gemma Purfield is captain, and we saw them play against Arsenal in a friendly at the weekend, and was a pretty promising display despite the 3-0 result.
Yeah, I mean, they were never going to dominate the ball. And when we spoke to Remy Allen afterwards, and Megan Collette as well, they were like, well, we didn't really create much. And you can understand why they're saying that, but from the outside, you wouldn't probably expect them to create that much. But they defended pretty solidly, stayed compact, didn't give Arsenal too many chances. They'll be frustrated at conceding 2 from set pieces, but I think, and the first goal, I'm not sure they can do much about that. So I think they will take a lot from that. They competed well with Tottenham in pre-season as well. They lost 2-1, I think. So quite a late goal. So they've been competing pretty well. I think the problem last year mainly was consistency. I remember seeing them play the first game of the season. I was like, this team could win this thing. Maybe my predictions aren't ones to listen to, but they were playing pretty well. And I think whenever I saw them, they played pretty decent stuff, but it was just about consistency at times and being able to back up wins with another win or back up wins on the road. And that was where they fell down a bit. I think while they've got a new manager in Remy Allen and there's so much excitement about her and her development as a coach, we saw what she did with London City at the end of last season and keeping them up. They've got a really good, new impetus while keeping the same structure around them. So Marion Spacey-Cale is obviously still very much part of the setup. She's just moved into more of a, back off director role rather than an on-pitch role. So I think you've got the foundation still very much there, which allows for consistency off the pitch, which then hopefully will build the consistency on the pitch.
Yes, well, it's funny you should use that word consistency, because that is something that Atlanta Primus reflected on when you chatted to her about last season and where perhaps they fell down when it came to that 5-horse race and ultimately, winning the league. This is what she said. And she also speaks as well nicely about the environment at Southampton and why she enjoys playing there so much.
You were right up there last season in terms of the challenge for the title. I know there were like 5 or 6 teams. It was a bit crazy.
Yeah.
What do you think? When you reflect back on that season, where do you think the club just fell short?
I think it was just our consistency, really. I think the most important thing is picking up points week in, week out. And I think when you look at how we got on over the season, I think we didn't draw a game. And I think it's crucial to pick up as many points as we can. I think we'd have some weeks where we were flying and other weeks where we couldn't really scrape any points. And I think that is the most important thing, being consistent and being consistent over the whole year. And I think this is going to be an even tougher year this year. It's important that we can stay consistent, stay in games, try and, ground out results and really work together as a team to come away with a draw on some days, and I think that could have been the difference between getting promoted and not last year. So I think reflecting on it, I think we had good moments and we had a lot of learning moments, but it just makes us all better for this upcoming season.
And I guess you're quite a young team as well, so all of those experiences will build. And while it's been a summer change, there's been quite a lot of stability as well at the club, and I know they really back you as players. How does that feel when you're a player in that environment?
Yeah, I mean, it's important that you feel valued, you feel backed by the club, and I think we've managed to secure a lot of players and bring in some new talented young players too. And I think everyone's had experience in the league now, and I think that's vital for what we want to do moving forward. It's like I said, I can't say it enough. It is going to be a tough year. We're not naive to that, but I think it makes it even more fun or enjoyable to be a part of. And I think everyone's got that common goal of trying to get promoted, and we'll do everything we can to do that.
So some new signings then for Southampton. They've brought in Rachel Rowe, Tara Bourne, Franz Denson. Tara Bourne played well against Arsenal, I thought. She kind of stood out as a player who played well. So a couple of good signings there.
Yeah, they've signed well. I think they could have made... I was probably expecting them to make a couple more. But they've made a couple of good signings. Bringing in Freya Gregory as well on loan from Villa is a really key one. I think some really good young talent there. Talent that are really wanting to step up, get minutes under the belts more than anything, and show what they're made of. And then in Rachel Rowe, you've got all of the experience that she brings and all of the, she's one of the, I remember watching her for Reading for those years, and she was always one of the best players in the pitch, hardest working. She drives from the middle. She's tireless. She chases after anything and anyone. And that's the kind of player you want your younger midfielders to look up to, or your young players in general to look up to, I think. So I think that will stand them in good stead.
Yeah. We touched there on Remy Allen being new manager in, and, it's not like they were having a bad time in the previous season under Marion Space-Kale. Obviously, they were doing a great job there, but there will be that kind of, I guess, renewed sense of energy, which is something that Lucia Kendall touched on when you spoke to her about, how they're getting on in pre-season, and of course, Remy Allen.
How is pre-season going for you?
Yeah, really well, actually. Obviously, Remy's come in as our new head coach, but she's been really good. I think everyone's on board with her kind of style of play, her philosophy, like the environment we want to create. It's been really good so far. The new girls that have settled in have been really good. I think will be really good for us this season too.
For sure. I guess when you have that kind of change at a club that has been quite stable under management for so long, I know Marianne's still there, but so it's still stable in a way, but does it add a little bit of energy maybe that Remy's come in?
Yeah, definitely. I think a new manager's always going to add that little kind of push. People want to prove themselves, kind of it's a clean slate for everyone, which I think is important. But yeah, I think everyone's really excited now just to kind of build through pre-season and get into the fixtures.
Okay, so their first fixture is going to be against Bristol at home, 8th of September, 2 p.m. at St Mary's Stadium. Plenty of main stadia in this first weekend, which is great to see.
I mean, it is Southampton's home, and they are very determined, I think, to make it a bit of a fortress, but also, from being there on Saturday and seeing the stuff that they're doing off the pitch as well, they've built that sort of fan zone place that's covered with a stage. It's a bit like a barn, but not. With like a stage and a pub area. So you've got the covering for when the weather is really not great, but then you've got enough space outdoors for people to spill out, and there's entertainment going on and everything. And I think they can make that a really key place that people want to go and hang out before and after the game. I know that they had it open until 5 p.m. after the end of the match. So that was 1.5 hours after the final whistle, which I think is key. You're really fostering that kind of environment around the club.
Yeah, and they got over 5,000 people there for a friendly, which is pretty good going, I think. So
I asked Remy about that, and she was like,
they want more. Yeah.
Like, 10,000,
15,000.
But you do want more. But
lots of
pretty
ambition.
good start.
Lots of ambition around that club. Right, I feel like we're yo-yoing up and down the country now because we're going back up to Sunderland. Last season finishing third, of course, on 41 points. Mel Rea in charge. A good season for Sunderland. Finishing top three, right? Like pushing right to the last few weeks. I think particularly in the top three and top two, it was down to the last, particularly top two, but down to the last couple of games.
They surprised everyone, I think. And if they're being honest with themselves, I think they probably surprised themselves as well, because not that they've got a good squad, but they kind of retain the same players from the last year. They made a few signings, but retain the same players from the last year. And, the last season was a bit of a problematic one in terms of league position. So they did really well, pushed on last season, got up to third. They really competed all the way. And I think it showed them that they are building something up there. They've had obviously a bit of a turbulent time as an outfit, as a club in general over the last 5 or 6 years, where they, went from WSL football down to, it wasn't going that well in terms of the support from the main club as well, the men's side of the club and all of that. But I think they've managed to recalibrate things, resettle things, and that kind of, we say it again, consistency and stability is absolutely key.
It's something that Brianna Westrup spoke about and reflected on really well, reflecting on last season, but also touching on the unity in the squad and how important that was to them building that kind of consistency last season. So here's what she had to say to Soph.
It feels like the club have really stepped up in the last couple of seasons, and I guess that shows with that kind of league performances last year that you came so close at the end of it. So what did you learn most from last season that you can take in as a player, but also as a group?
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing would probably be the unity of the group. I think everyone would agree we didn't necessarily have on paper the best team or the team going in that everyone thought was going to achieve what we did. However, we all had a very common goal, and we put our defensive performances very, very
high on our priority list to not concede, and that put us in really good stead when we might get a last minute goal in the game, or our strikers or wingers put together that little bit of magic. So I think the unity obviously shone through, especially at the beginning half of the season. We went on a bit of an unbeaten run, which was exciting and definitely unexpected from everyone outside looking in. So the hope is that we can, after keeping a good core of the group together, to build a little bit more on our style of play. I think as it neared towards the end of the season, because we were in that title race, it was less about how well we played and more about winning, which it always gets that way towards the end of the season. So the hope is this preseason we can really, really nail down how we want to play a bit more, because last year we had quite a big turnover of players. So the people we've added in can hopefully just add to the style of play and hopefully put some more dominant performances together throughout the league.
Coach spoke really well. Some key new signings for them. Maybe they could make a few more. You've got Demi Lambourne from Leicester, Eleanor Dell from Everton, Jessie Stapleton and Ciara Flannery on loan from West Ham as well. Some exciting youngsters. Could they do with a few more, or do you feel like they're going for that continuity and stability given how well last season went?
They don't need that many more, but you could always use a couple more, I think. I think they're using the loan system pretty well. Those two are really, really, people are very excited about them as young talents, but they're just not getting minutes at the moment at West Ham, just because of what West Ham are trying to do and who they're bringing in. So it works well for all parties involved, West Ham, Sunderland, and the players. In terms of they replaced Claudia Moan with Demi Lambourne, that makes sense. Demi brings a whole lot of experience, and she's a very, very good keeper. Maybe didn't always get her chance at Leicester, but did well last year as well. So I think it's they could always add more, but we'll have to see what happens with it.
Yeah, especially when, as Brianna Westrup spoke about, that unity in the squad, I think they obviously feel pretty together and like they've achieved. So maybe you don't want too many other players rocking the boat. We shall see. Now, I know we already touched on numerous times the increase in teams in the Northeast and the increase in talent coming out of the Northeast and the hotbed, as it's so often called. But you can't begrudge us asking a Sunderland player about that, because that's an exciting, getting to play more than one derby in a season is going to be really exciting. And it is something you spoke to Emily Scarr about. She touched on that, and she also touched on the fact that more talent is coming out, young talent from the Northeast, and how important that is.
I was talking earlier about it being kind of a hotbed of talent pool, especially, and you've got such with Durham now and now Newcastle as well.
Yeah,
it's going to be a really competitive league in that part of the world. How excited are you for those games?
Yeah, I think it's great. Obviously, having 3 Northeast teams in the same league. I think obviously the last few years we've only had me in Durham, but I feel like it offers a lot of opportunities for girls. It's great for the area, and girls to be motivated by us and the teams.
And at Sunderland have such a rich history in bringing players through. We've seen Lionesses come through as well. I guess that is a real special team to be a part of.
Yeah, of course, and obviously we've got a few England stars in the team with Grace and Katie, which is really good.
I guess that's really shows the sign of what the club is trying to do in the women's game and the kind of influence that they're trying to have.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's a lot more young talent coming through. Normally it's older, more experienced players, but I feel like now coaches and teams are looking for more young talent, which is great.
Right, so their first fixture is versus Birmingham away, so a little bit of a trek for them as well.
It's going to be a toughie as well for the start of the season. We talked in the first pod about how it's how much experience internationally Birmingham have within their ranks, and they'll be on a high after the summer as well. So it's not going to be an easy one, but if they carry on where they left off last season, they can definitely compete.
So that is, of course, on the 8th of September at 2 p.m. and it is being played in St Andrews. So that is all 11 teams. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I hope we haven't missed that one.
I hope we haven't missed out anybody. Obviously we wanted to give you, we could talk more about every team, but we wanted to make sure every team was represented, give you a little bit of a flavour from each one, hear a little bit from each team, which we managed to do because of that great media day. So I'm really looking forward to it kicking off on the weekend. Next Monday, we have got the WSL Media Day. So we won't have an episode coming out then because I will be running around like a blue arse fly on my own trying to cover all of the WSL teams.
Sorry, not sorry.
And I think that we might approach our WSL preview slightly differently, just to spice things up a bit. But I've enjoyed this. I think it's been good. The Championship's such an exciting league to explore, so I've really enjoyed that one. But
And the media day was really cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Just to have that much, I think it was the first time they'd done a real proper one like that, where it was really like all stakeholders were involved.
Yeah.
And my determination to start up a Championship Olympics next season might fall flat due to risk assessments, but I can live.
We'll give it a go. But we commence on the 16th. We will start delving into the Barclays Women's Super League, of course. So make sure you've subscribed across all platforms, wherever you get your podcasts, and also on our social media platforms at Girls on the Ball, so you don't miss any episodes. Because we're going to try, but we're not going to promise, we might try and do something from these Arsenal Champions League fixtures this week. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But otherwise, we will speak to you very, very soon.